Hi, my name is Mayana. Welcome to Maya Core. Today I'm going to be doing a really small book unhaul. I have not done a book unhaul in like years because I really haven't been buying a lot of books in the past like year, and I've gotten into and I've more became the kind of reader where I only buy books after I read them now. So now books that I unhaul are pretty much books that I've already owned for years that I typically have already read. Although I have not been good at reading my own personal library. I've been working on it. I am working on it. I just don't have any discipline. So I really want to talk about some of the books that I wanted to decide to unhaul in the past like few months. And so the first book that I have is We Could Never Leave This Place by Eric LaRocca. I love Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke. I thought that book was super amazing. It was exactly what I was looking for in horror. Exactly the type of horror that I look for. I really love weird books like that have gore, but they aren't necessarily like, oh, like gore porn or whatever. Like the point isn't to be so gory, like disgust you, but like it's just a really fucking weird horror book. Like those are my type of horror books, like your Slewfoot, your Grady Hendrix, like those type of books. So I was like, okay, I could really fuck with Eric LaRocca. They clearly write the kind of books that I'm looking for, so I decided to read this book as well. I had already owned it for some years. Y'all, this book had a spider in it, and y'all know, if you've been following me for a while, you know how I feel about spiders. This was a huge giant talking spider. I said, oh no, I don't do that. Other than that, I just didn't think this book was as good as Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke. I think that that book kind of raised the bar for me personally, and I feel like I was duped. Like I thought I was gonna like them, and then like I haven't liked anything since. But that just, we might not just vibe. Like I thought we vibed. I thought they wrote the kind of horror that I liked, but I don't think that they do, and that's okay. I'm still gonna try to read them. I'm still gonna look into some of their other books that they have, but this book just absolutely was not for me. The next book I have is We Could Be Heroes. I've had this book for a long time. Like this book is not talked about at all. I'm really into like superheroes. I'm really into like Marvel and like Gen V, because I don't watch The Boys yet, so we're gonna say Gen V. Like DC, like Invincible. I'm a superhero girl. I actually recently read Hinge like 2 years ago, and I loved it, and I was obsessed with it, and it's still one of my favorite books of all time now. And so I've kind of been like looking for books that kind of give that, because there aren't a lot of superhero books out there, and if they are, they're typically like YA, which is this. And like y'all know, I'm not like a YA reader. There's nothing wrong with YA, but as an adult, I'm just looking for more books for my adult self that fit my taste. And I didn't even read this book, but I looked at like the rating, and I've fallen victim to like seeing how low a rating is and be like, oh, it's not for me. But like I saw the rating, and I think I tried a chapter, and it just wasn't for me. Like it just wasn't like my style of things. So unfortunately, we can't be heroes, and I'm not gonna read this book, so I'm just gonna unhaul it. And so the next book I have is Dead Silence. I've owned this book for a very long time. I remember when this book first came out, I was in like my party girl, like hot girl era. Like I was going out to clubs and going out to bars, and I wasn't really like reading that much. And then I randomly decided that I wanted to pick up this sci-fi book, even though I wasn't that into sci-fi. Big mistake, by the way. So I picked up this sci-fi book even though I wasn't like that big into sci-fi, and I wasn't really vibing with this book. So I was like, I'm gonna put this down when I'm back into my reading era. And then 2 years later, I decided to pick this up because I watched Doctor Who, and Doctor Who has some like episodes. Doctor Who is really fun, and so I really wanted more sci-fi books that like gave the Doctor Who vibes. And so I remember starting this book, and I remember being like, that kind of gave like the vibe of an episode I had just watched. It was the episode where it was Dr. 11, and they were on like this ship, but everybody on the ship was like dead. And so their plot lines aren't necessarily exactly similar, but they're kind of similar. And so I thought it was going to give like a Doctor Who episode vibe, and it honestly really didn't. This book is about this girl who wakes up on a spaceship with no memory. How convenient. So yeah, her crew picks up a distress signal of another ship, so they go and check it out, and like, ugh. Like it's like starting something, there's ghosts and like a spooky shit going on. And like, I don't know how to explain this without any spoilers, but I don't know why this book introduced something and then in the end was like, oh haha, never mind, like that wasn't it. Like I guess I don't know how to say it without spoilers, so I'm just gonna spoil it, okay? So if you don't want to hear spoilers, like you can just skip to the next book. why did this book introduce the idea of like ghosts and stuff, being like, oh yeah, she see ghosts, just for the end of it to be like some scheme by some like random ass, well, he wasn't random because he was like throughout the book, but some scheme by some random ass man. What was the point of that? Like, why did the book be like, oh yeah, there's ghosts, but there's not? And I'm not even like a ghost reader, so I mean, thank God, but whatever. Next book I have is Ender's Game. I've owned this book for a while. This is one of the very first books I bought when I like started to dive into sci-fi, which is so funny because I started to get into sci-fi because I was like talking to this guy who read a lot of sci-fi, but like I actually discovered like I actually have a huge love for sci-fi through that. So like it actually introduced like one of my favorite genres to me, and I just think that that's so like funny. But my point is that Ender's Game was one of the very first books that I bought to get into that, because it was just like a book that I heard about. Like that, like Ready Player One were like the sci-fi books that I heard about the most, and so I bought it and I just never got into it. And then I've been really on my sci-fi kick like last month, so I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna read it. And I have a lot of books like hidden in corners, like I have books hidden behind other books because I have so many. So what I did was I moved the books from the back to the front, and while I was moving them I saw Ender's Game, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna read this. So I decided to read it, and I did not love it. So Ender's Game is basically like, it's hard to explain, but basically like the military is depending on children because like the universe is under attack, and so there's a lot more going on. But basically the character Ender gets put into like this military. He's a child, and when I say kids, I'm not like, oh 17, oh 16, 14. These children are like 6 to 10, right? And so I'm like reading this as an adult, and I'm just like, I don't know how believable this is, because I have a 16-year-old brother. We're 10 years apart. So when he was 10, I was 20. So as an adult, I've got to see like a child's perspective like my entire adulthood. I don't think that children will ever evolve to be able to be put into the military. Like, my brother's a very smart young man, by the way. Like, he has all AP classes. Like, he's very bright. I don't think children would ever evolve that far. But one thing that pissed me off in this book was, so they were talking, and the character Ender notices that there's not a lot of women. There are women, but there's not a lot of women. And so they're like talking, and he's just like, oh, well, maybe women haven't evolved. So you mean to tell me that humanity has evolved so far enough that 6 to 10-year-olds can be put into a military, but the idea of a woman being put into a military is just unlikely? I had to Google some things about this author because I'm like, it's giving misogyny. Like, what? So yeah, I googled and actually ended up finding out this man is heinous. Like, there is like I implore you, like, you might not be the type of person who cares about what an author is doing. Just read for your own entertainment, I guess. And then another thing was, like, there was a point in the book where the two characters, they're like 6 and 10, or 4 and one of those, right? They decide that they're going to take over the world. You know how they decide that? They decide they're going to take over the world because they're going to start a discussion column, and they're going to get people to discuss things. That's how they're going to take over the world. Those two geniuses. I said, this book is silly. No, like, what? No. It has so many high ratings, and I'm like, why? The last book that I am going to be unhauling is To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, which is so crazy because I was really excited for this. I was picking this book up because I want the prequel. I freaking love this cover. I love the cover of the prequel. I wanted it so bad. But I started reading this book, girl. I was bored out of my fucking mind. First of all, let me make sure I leave no bookmark here, because you know I will leave a bookmark in the book. I was interested at first. Like, it just looked so interesting. But girl, is this book boring. Like, I don't even remember how far I got. I got a little bit into the book. Like, I had to be like at least like 200 pages into this book, and I was bored out of my mind. And like, I'm not a big book bitch, okay? I'm not a big book girly, like, y'all know this. Like, I really have to like want to read a book for it to be like big. And like, I remember I started back when I worked at Ulta. I started on my late night shift. I literally remember it like it happened yesterday, like it happened last night. Like, I started on my late night shifts, like nobody was there. I was listening to my audiobook. We were like putting stuff in the store, and like, I'm like 2 hours into my shift, I'm like, this book is boring. I'm like, I want to turn this shit off and listen to some music right now. I go on my break, I'm reading the book because I brought the book with me, so I'm reading the book on my break. I'm like, this shit is boring. So I go back to finish my shift. I just turn the book off. I'm like, I'm not reading this. I literally go home, I put this immediately in my unhaul pile. Didn't pick it back up. Didn't pick it back up after that. I was like, I cannot do this. Like, it just wasn't, it was just very boring. I couldn't get attached to the characters. I didn't care about the plot line. Maybe I needed to read it physically all the way through, but from what I did read physically, I wasn't enjoying it. And it just sucked because I was really excited for it. Y'all, like I've been saying this whole video, I've really been into sci-fi. I'm really into space sci-fi. This was a waste of time. Like, to be honest. So, yeah. That's it for this video. Those are all the books that I have to unhaul. Hopefully I do better at reading the books that I own, because I do better at reading the books that I own, because I do want to do more of like these unhauls or just anything involving books that I already own. So yeah, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.